We're going to talk some Buffalo Bills, some information coming out now about the PSLs that may have Bills season ticket holders concerned. We'll talk about the new Bills and Sabres COO and the long overdue return of our starting five draft. All that coming up right now on Talking Buffalo.
Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo, with your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you very much, as always, for watching, listening, following, subscribing. Appreciate y'all very much. This is going to be a busy week here coming up on Talking Buffalo. Tomorrow's show, Anthony Marino is going to be in the Tuesday show time slot for the time being, so I got him on tomorrow's show. Wednesday, our first of what will be 5 weekly Wednesday mock drafts. I'm going to have Bruce Nolan from Buffalo Rumblings with me for that. Thursday, I knew you weren't going to let me get through that. There was never a doubt in my mind. Thursday's show, my man Tone Pucks will be with me here in studio. And then on our Friday show, live from Imperial. It's been a while since we've done a live show from Imperial Pizza. But the first of what will be 4 consecutive weekly shows at Imperial, I'm going to be joined by Chris Trapasso from CBS Sports. Looking forward to that. If you're listening to this and not watching, sure you've heard him in the background already. Our Monday show, which means I'm joined by my frenemy, my man, my recurring guest here on the weekly show, Joe from Queens, cracking. What are you cracking there, man? What's going on? How you doing?
Doing well, man. This is a Hamburg bourbon barrel aged imperial stout that my father-in-law got me. He gets me a care package. He's actually from Buffalo, and he gets me a care package for my birthday, Christmas, that has like local beer and like a bunch of stuff. And this is one of the things he got me, and it's a very good bourbon barrel. So it's like bourbon. It's aged in the barrels. It's like a stout. It's very good.
Our beer differences, we've talked about this before. They can never be more different. But I will say, I have changed a little bit. Like when we used to talk, I used to only drink Bud Light, Coors Light, just other domestic, kind of what do they call them? Piss water beers.
Sure.
Bud Light, all easy to
You're a cheap guy.
Yeah, cheap guy.
Unless you're buying media wings.
But beer. I've been going to some places lately, like Big Ditch Brewery downtown. They got
they got good beer.
They got a good Pilsner. So I do like Pilsners and some wheats and some ales. I hate IPAs, stouts. It's not my thing, man. It's not
I can get why people may not like IPAs or stouts. Like IPAs can be bitter, obviously, and stouts are just dark. This you might like because it's bourbon, so it's bourbon, so it tastes like a little bit like a bourbon, a little bit,
cool,
in a stout form. So it's very sweet. So it's not your typical. It's not even close to like a Guinness or anything like that. But it's good.
I hinted at the very top. It's been a long time since I've done one of these for newer people to the show here. Whether you're watching, whether you're listening. Back in the day, I used to have Joe Yerdon on almost every week, and almost every week we would do a starting five draft. Something different, something fun, kind of break the monotony of Buffalo sports talk a little bit. We pick a different topic and we will draft 5 selections. And then the next day, I will put up a poll on Twitter and you guys could vote for the favorite. Joe from Queens here is we're bringing it back, man. He's taking over the reins and we're going to start that again every week. And this being Easter week coming up, Joe, I'll give you credit for this one. I think it's a good category too. We decided to draft this week. We're going to do best bunnies. And let me throw this out there too. You don't know
rabbits.
Who I'm taking.
Bunnies or rabbits.
Or rabbits.
Anything with rabbits or bunnies.
Bunnies, rabbits, correct. Yes. Anything along those lines, like I said, kind of in celebration of this being Easter week. I'll let you know. I have no idea who you're thinking. You don't know who I'm thinking. So it's not like something we've pre-drafted.
I'm not giving you my board. I would never do that.
We don't even know who's going to go first in this draft yet, let alone.
It should be me as the guest. Like I'm the guest of honor. I should be going first.
Well, we'll figure that out. So anyway,
let's come out because we always are truthful to our audience. So this all started because I told Pat I wanted to review Sopranos. I wanted to watch a Sopranos episode every Sunday before that we did a podcast, and we were going to review it. Pat was like, no one watches Sopranos anymore. It's too old. No one talks about it. So me and him went back and forth, more or less like us bickering at each other, or me yelling at him, like, why would you do this? This is great. This would be a great idea. People would want it. And I put it on Twitter, and it was like 50-50, thought it was a good idea versus bad idea. And then finally, Pat, knowing that I was annoyed because I was like, we're just going to talk about Stephon Diggs every Sunday for the next like 3 months. And I'm like, can we just talk about something else? He goes, we'll bring back the draft. And I'm like, fine, we'll bring back the draft. I always wanted to do one of these drafts because you always had Yerdon on. And I have questions about the draft when we get to there because I just wanted like a little bit of a like a little strategy, not a lot, but I'm just curious. I have like 1 or 2 questions, but that's what happened. Pat had to compromise with me because I was being very angry because I was like, you can never do anything I want to do.
Well, I like the draft. It's a good concept, and I miss doing it because it's something different every week. Like if you hate the topic this week, like let's just say next week we do 90s movies.
Diggs, yeah, whatever.
You know what I'm saying? You're like, I'm not a 90s movies guy. Well, the following week it'll be something completely different. Whereas with The Sopranos, it's if you love The Sopranos, sure, you can't get enough of it, even if there's still podcasts out there about it. But if you're not a Sopranos guy, if you didn't watch it before, you're not interested in watching it, I just feel like that would be, Anyway, plus, I don't really feel like watching it again.
It's definitely the latter. He doesn't want to watch it.
It is the motivation to watch it.
Because I didn't care if people don't listen. I just want to do something like I genuinely like. Like, hey, sure. I wouldn't mind. And like, it's on our list.
I'm going to let you control more weeks than not. You're going to pick the category that we draft.
Oh, I am? Oh, cool. I didn't know I was going to have full autonomy. Excuse me there.
You picked that one. So anyway, that's going to be later on in the show. We'll be doing those at the end of the show.
Sure.
Like I said, we're going to talk besides just the Bills today, we're going to talk some PSL stuff because there's some information to come out that I think is worthy of a discussion. And like I said, the Bills and the new COO for both the Bills and the Sabres. We'll get to that in a few minutes. I do want to say, before we really get cooking here, so we're taping this Sunday early evening around 6:00, literally a handful of minutes before we started taping this show. Brandon Beane is actually at the winter meetings and talking to Bills reporters right now. And I just want to run down a couple what I think are newsworthy items, at least notable items, maybe not newsworthy per se, but certainly notable that Brandon Beane has just said here on Sunday as we're literally getting rolling here. Briefly here, and I'll just run them off. Curtis Samuel he doesn't look at him as just your typical type of wide receiver. He said in Carolina when he had his best year in 2020, he spent as much time in the running back room meetings as he did in the wide receiver rooms. So I think his vision for him is going to be a guy who could do a lot of different things. I would say like what they really were hoping that Isaiah McKenzie would be, maybe souped up. Sounds to me like that's going to be his role, which if it is, and we're going to talk about this, I'm sure, throughout this week and weeks to come, that does not put any damper on a wide receiver early, that notion of that. Not that there was one to begin with, but that kind of reemphasizes that shouldn't affect your wide receiver room at all. Anyway, he mentioned that. He talked about 2 former Buffalo Bills, Micah Hyde, who says he has not closed the door on returning. He has not made a decision yet. And Brandon Beane said that they have not closed the door on a return for him. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Ditto for Trey White. And he said that he spoke with Trey White before the Super Bowl, and he was transparent the entire time, cut him early, June 1st cut. But he's still open. He is at least open to a potential down the road Trey White return. I really don't see that happening, but I thought it was interesting that he said that. He said that the Bills right now are $6 to $7 million under the salary cap. That's not counting Trey's money that comes available June 1st. And he did say one other thing, which I know you're not going to be a fan of. He says if they were to stretch the cap financially, that it's going to be in the trenches. So anyway, a bunch of stuff coming out of here from Brandon Beane.
Defense wins championships.
Sunday. Yeah. I think he's just saying nice things. I don't think Micah Hyde's coming back. I'm really confident that Trey White's not going to come back. I mean, never say never, but yeah. So anyway, that's what he said. Yeah, cool. Now, before we get going, because there were some, we talk here weekly now. There was some news, some moves. The Bills actually made a handful of moves over the past week since we've talked. They run down them real quick and get a couple thoughts from you on these. They signed in interior lineman, center guard, Will Clapp. Okay. Signed Mike Edwards, their safety from Kansas City. I think that was the big signing for the week. They signed a defensive end over this past week from Washington, Casey Tohill, and they signed defensive tackle from the Chargers over this weekend, Saturday actually, Austin Jackson.
Yes,
so,
more line help. Yay.
More line. Well, I know how you feel about that.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Let me say this. So through additions, all right, Joe. So since pretty much free agency has started now, this is kind of what the Bills essentially have done. Are they better? Are they worse? I don't know. That remains to be seen. But they've gotten a starting safety through free agency, Mike Edwards for sure, and they re-signed Taylor Rapp. A starting receiver, Curtis Samuel. Well, there's a receiver. He's in the backfield. Dude's going to be on the field. They added a little bit of interior offensive line depth with Clapp and with Tohill and with Austin Jackson. Before I get your takes, I'm actually going to support you a little bit here.
Oh, that's a miracle.
Well, a little bit. Here's the thing, PFF. I know you see this all the time on Twitter. You hear about it all the time. People like to use PFF grades when it fits their narrative.
Oh, yeah. I was about to. You stole my thunder because I was about to bring it up when you tossed it to me about the San Diego guys.
Right.
He was terrible last year, according to them.
Right. A lot of people like to use PFF grades, and I do, but they only like to use them or talk up PFF when it fits their narrative. Like, sure. Mike Edwards' coverage skills or Curtis Samuel's running ability, this and that. When the PFF grades are high, you're like, this is great. Look at him. His PFF grade is this. When his PFF grade shitty, then it kind of doesn't matter as much. I bring that up because I actually did a little bit of legwork here. And these signings that the Bills have had throughout the week, PFF, if you're going by that, not good. Will Clapp, which, by the way, I think that's the one that they probably have the smallest expectations for. I think this is a guy who will be in the mix for the roster. I don't think he's guaranteed to be the swing, and he's not the next Ryan Bates. That's not far from a lock. But anyway, PFF grades. Let me throw this out here. 37 centers played 28 or 20% of the snaps. He's only 26 out of 37. He sucked at run blocking per PFF, middle of the pack, pass blocking. I really don't want to talk about him because we know what he's going to be. Casey Tohill, who I think the Bills, he's their fourth end right now. He's probably your Shaq Lawson. PFF grade, 52.1. Only 107 out of 121 eligible defensive ends. So near the bottom. 47.4 tackling grade per PFF. 77 out of 121. 54 pass rush grade, which is just 102 out of 121. Yeah. But the guy, Austin Jackson, who a lot of people are talking about this weekend, PFF, 45.7 overall grade, 127 out of 141. That is horrible. Although it was still higher than Jordan Phillips. His run grade is a 48.4, which is 96 out of 141. And his run grade is actually good, 59.9, which is 28 out of 141. But overall, not good. Anyway, that's what the Bills have done over the past week. What are your thoughts on those? And maybe as it pertains to the draft, I guess, coming up.
I mean, I said, 2 or 3 weeks ago, before we went into the free agency, if the Bills wanted to add some defensive line help, I was fine with that. Because in my opinion, if you draft defensive linemen, it takes a little bit longer for them to find their feet in the NFL than it is wide receivers. So they're kind of doing a little bit of both, but more on the defensive side or the line play, if you will. In terms of Pro Football Focus, I used to have that subscription when I used to do content for my old website. I used to have it as well. I know you have it, and it was totally different then. It was a lot. You had more access, and then it just the price skyrocketed. Where if you wanted to see coverage, because I remember back in the day, it would be you would know exactly how many times someone threw at Ronald Darby or whatever, and you would know the completion percentage and everything. You knew exactly how it was. And that's what I used to grade it by. I would just look at that. I never cared about the grades all that much because it was subjective. And there were times I remember, there was a game I remember Aaron Rodgers had a 4-touchdown game, and Pro Football Focus gave him a really bad grade. And I was kind of okay, that didn't make any sense to me. So it's subjective. With the Chargers, I guess I'm curious. Remind me, did Mack and Bosa play? Bosa got hurt, correct? He got hurt, and Mack played, I think, most of the year. And I know he's kind of on the down edge. So that's a little bit of a concern. I don't know, because I think of the Chargers defensive line as being pretty decent. But again, if the injuries kind of affected him, then maybe that's why his grade was down, etc. But I definitely felt that his play was he's going to be an interior guy. Hopefully, he doesn't play that much.
Yeah. Listen. First of all, I shame on me because I pronounced the dude's name wrong. It's Austin Johnson, not Jackson. I don't know what the hell I was just thinking right there. But anyway, but I will say, in terms of Austin Johnson, PFF grades notwithstanding, DeQuan Jones, for whatever it's worth, was really excited about signing him. He talked him up.
They played together.
Yeah, he
also did. I looked real quick. I'm sorry. I did look up his snap percentage. They were pretty down. He doesn't play a lot. Like, I think last year he was around 55%. When he was with the Giants, and this is through Pro Football Reference. If you go to the snap counts for his page, you can see it. When he was with the Giants, he played like that between 30 and 40%, which is exactly what the McDermott defense is all about. Everyone has got to get their rest, and they got to keep them fresh for the playoffs, so they only play 30 snaps a game, and we got to give them extensions, blah blah blah. But we'll see what they do. I do like that they're getting maybe a little bit of new blood in there, because I do feel the defensive line let them down, especially against
it was horrible.
Against the Chiefs, they were bad, but I don't know how bad they're going to be. We'll see what happens when. We'll see what happens when they go again, when they do it again, So,
well,
it's fine. Look, they're adding role guys. I've been fine with their offseason. I do really believe that it's going to be how they what happens in the draft. I definitely would like them to trade up to get a wide receiver, give up a second rounder, move the top 20 or something, and get a wide receiver. That would be fun.
They should be able to. I think they need to get to. I hate using the word starter because, Dalton Kincaid technically wasn't even a starter, but they need two guys who can make an impact and contribute significantly, I believe, from day one. Austin Johnson, I'll say this, I was bringing up PFF because I like to be fair. Again, you can't praise somebody profusely based on their PFF grades when they're good and then dismiss them when they're bad. So that's why I wanted to make sure I do those out there.
A lot of content creators do that.
I do think he's an upgrade though. He's an upgrade over Tim Settle. He's an upgrade over Poona Ford and over Linval Joseph. So you got to look at it this way. I think Brandon Beane has done a pretty good job right now this offseason.
I hope you're right in that regards. Cause look, those guys, when they came here, I think that the expectation was they were going to be helpful impact guys. Then we saw them and they went Roger Staffel, which they were done. So I'm hoping that's not the case with this guy where it's like, hey, I don't think everyone was watching. I'm sure they're, film bros are watching San Diego Chargers games right now, seeing how he is, but we don't know how he's going to fit with this defense. The defensive line, it's a unique machine that I kind of hate here because, as I said before, everyone has to play 30 to 50% of the snaps. We need 10 guys. That's how McDermott wants. I wish it was 2014 when we had 4 great defensive ends or defensive linemen, and I don't even remember who the backups were then because it was these guys are going to play 70% of the snaps, and who cares?
Yeah, wrong coach for that though. That ain't happening.
I know, and I don't. I'm not. I would rather have a defensive line where you have 1 or 2 really great guys, and the rest are just role guys. Okay, yeah, do this. And I feel the Bills don't have that. They have a lot. They have some decent guys, and then they have a lot of role guys, and they don't have Chris Jones. They don't have Aaron Donald. And I know that doesn't grow on trees, but to me, that's what I would prefer. Get the guy, and then don't worry about everyone else. You know what I mean? And then on the front 4, but they don't like that. They want to have everyone has a role and gap integrity and all those buzzwords. And
well, what is fair? It's fair to say because I remember last year Poona Ford, which was a late signing after the draft, and also the year before with Tim Settle, the expectations were pretty good. I remember talking about them being upgrades.
I got yelled at because I questioned.
Yeah, but he was coming off the couch.
But my thing was not to go back, but my thing was, why is this guy waiting so long? If he was that valuable, someone would have signed him so he can make money. And he didn't want to go to training camp. I'm like, training camp was 2 months ago, dude. He would have, Like, what was he? He didn't want to go and like he would have got paid.
It was
elsewhere.
money. It was money. He's one of those
Maybe,
players.
yeah,
He had a really
probably
good career. He didn't want to play for a minimum, so he was going to wait for a team to get desperate and give him good money, and that's ultimately what the Bills did.
Yeah.
With Tim Settle, though, I remember hearing it over and over and over again that he was stuck in Washington behind two stud defensive tackles, which he was, but all he needed was opportunity. Well, he got a lot of it in Buffalo, and he didn't do anything with it, and neither did Poona Ford, but that was really weird with Poona Ford. I don't know what it was, but for whatever reason, he just seemed to not be a fit with Sean McDermott. I don't know why, but he didn't really get a lot of opportunities.
It's kind of interesting to me, like since McDermott got here, and correct me if I'm wrong, the defensive tackle has been I feel like a little bit of a lightning rod, where you're like remember when Star Latulier was here, and we always had conversation how good he was or how bad he was because he didn't show up in the box seats, but then the film bros would be like, well, he's covering the run, and then there was Harrison Phillips who, I kind of was like, I'm like, I think he's just popular because he's in West Her commercials, and like people like I was like they could do a little bit better, and then they always have a little bit of that lightning rod with that defensive tackle since McDermott's been there. Like it's not been like, you hate you're not a giant fan of Ed Oliver, and I think he's okay.
I am during a regular season.
Yes, in the regular season he's good, but when he plays the Chiefs he's bad.
And the Bengals. He's just not good in the playoffs. I mean, it's a pattern.
Well, I think it's more or less he's not good against really good teams, which has been my stance for a while. Why you don't really invest as much on defense as you should. But I think
you could say the other way though. You could be like, you got to keep doing it until you get it right. I'm just saying. I'm not here to have that argument with you today, but you can't. Put it this way: whether we think they should or not, here's what I do know. They ain't going to stop taking guys early in the draft just because they keep getting it. I don't say wrong, but they haven't nailed it. They haven't nailed anybody defensive line in the draft. Again, look, Ed Oliver, top 9 pick, by the way, so he should be a stud. He should absolutely be a stud. And at times he is. He takes over games. I like your point. I think it's right. I think he dominates weak teams and has a couple good games against good teams here and there, but I can't overlook the fact that he's done literally zero in the playoffs 2 straight years. I like to
3 straight years. You could cut the Chiefs the 13-second game. Sure, no one played well, and he played in that game.
Dead silent in the playoffs for 3 straight years, and so have other guys. But other guys ain't getting paid 4 years, $68 million. They're not freaking stars. Ed Oliver is. DeQuan Jones, 32 years old. I like him. Can he stay healthy for a full year?
You love him.
Greg Rousseau has been better than average, but he's not a star. I mean, he's a late first round pick, so I don't know what your expectation should be. He's solid, but he's not like, yo, this dude, oh my God, if we got Greg Rousseau, you ain't running near him, or better look out for him. I don't feel like that about him. And then you got old ass Von Miller, and you got AJ Epinesa, who you brought back, who's mid. He's average, he's above average, second round guy, pretty good guy, second round guy. They still don't got that star on the defensive line. And I don't know that they're going to stop trying to get a star on the defensive line. I guess that's what I'm getting at here.
I think my thing is, like, where do you get, like, I need to one day look up defensive linemen and where they're drafted. Because there's a part of me that thinks, like, you get stud defensive linemen early. You know what I mean? Like, that's the one position. You get them early in the draft.
For sure. Defensive tackles in the first
you get
round.
Them, like, you don't, there's not a lot of Kyle Williams who are, like, 5th rounders and then they round it out. Like, you look at, and again, that's why where they're in the draft, I don't think they can never get like this dominant defensive tackle. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are defensive tackles out, and I wish I would, look this up and go, oh, here's an all pro. Like, when was Chris Jones drafted? Like, I don't know if you remember. Was he, I can look this up if you talk.
I don't remember. I don't know off the top of my head. I think he was drafted around 2017.
No. But, like, what round? Was he an early round?
I don't remember.
Well, I'm going to look it up for you, so you get to stall. This is great radio.
Okay. While you look that up, and let me get this
second round, 37th, which obviously that's good value. Like, hey, if you get a guy like that in the second round, like, sign me up.
He's probably not. He's the best defensive tackle probably in the NFL now with Aaron Donald retired. But anyway, here's what I was getting at. Anyway, I think Brandon Beane has done a good job of having it so he doesn't have to make like a nutty reach necessarily in the first. I think they've addressed the safety position enough. They brought in Curtis Samuel, so they've addressed that some. They've gotten a pretty good defensive tackle. Their biggest needs are still wide receiver, edge, defensive tackle. Those are their three biggest needs. I'd say they're like secondary needs, probably like interior offensive line, maybe get another running back, another safety. I think you'll see later in the draft like a focus on a few
safety. I'm
specialty core
curious
guys.
about. I'm still like
Right.
Rap. I don't know about Rap. Sorry, like how he's going to be in the system. I know he started with the Rams, but he didn't really do much last year. I'm a little curious about that. Like I think that's a little bit of a hole, and I say that more or less because of how important Poyer and Hyde were to this defense. You know what I mean? They were very important over the years. So I don't know how, were they the quarterbacks back there? You know, you hear that phrase.
There's a lot of questions. Look, this is a team. This is a team this year at this point that has more questions than they have in previous years. They might end up better than last year, but there's more questions right now. That's fair. You know what you were getting with with Poyer and Hyde. You don't know what you're getting right now with Rapp and Mike Edwards. You don't know what you're getting with Connor McGovern at center. You don't know if Von Miller has anything left. Is DeQuan Jones going to stay healthy? There's lots of questions.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. That's kind of like, you know, some like these moves are fine-ish, but it's like, you know, I go to an off season, I think about like, I want to get better. Like that's how I view off season. Like that gets me excited. Like, are you better? And and it's still early, kind of, but you know, are they better? Like, I don't know. I have no idea. It feels like but even it is early, but I feel like this is probably who else are they going to go out there and get that's going to be like, oh man, like if they like somehow traded up and then like got like a top 15 pick and they got like one of the great wide receivers, then I'd be like, yeah, like they're better. Like
I think if they come away from the draft with an edge and a receiver, whatever order you want to flip them, I think those are their two priorities. I don't even think there's much of a question about that anymore. If you go get those guys, and then after the draft, especially when the comp season ends and they got cap money, guys get signed late. The Bills signed Leonard Floyd on June 6th last year. Some guys are going to get cut after the draft because teams will draft somebody and they don't need them.
It's a smart play by Beat.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll see. I mean, I you know, everyone, there's like this like tribalism between like the wide receiver train and like the defensive tackle. Pick the best player alive at the end of the first round. And I think there's like I think if they go wide receiver in the first round, there's going to be a little bit of that. Okay, they're going to be better next year because people really. I'm one of them. I'm not going to say I'm not. I'm one of those guys who wants a wide receiver there. That your expectations will flip pretty, not 180, but they're going to go up. Whereas if they get a defensive tackle, you'll be like, okay, great. Like, he's going to play 40% of the snaps again, and then we're going to ease him in, and he'll be like Ed Oliver, where you're like, oh, he did nothing for his first 2 years, and then he got better as the years went on, you know. So
the last thing I'll say about this current team, I want to get to PSL stuff too here, but the last thing I'll say about this current team is there's going to be like they moved the needle somewhat at wide receiver in free agency. They moved the needle at safety. And even though Austin Johnson's not a big name, he's still a depth guy at defensive tackle. And that might make the need not as much to take a defensive tackle really early, per se. That's why I said they have not moved the needle at all at defensive end. Casey Tohill is not a needle mover, literally at all. So I don't know. We'll see how things play out. But I want to get to a couple other things here because
I really don't want an edge rusher. I'm sorry. Like, I don't. I know I'm going ahead, but
you're going to get one. In
the first round, it would be five, Pat. It would be 5 defensive linemen they've picked since 2019 in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah,
I'm just like, do we really? And then like, how much free agency money have you given to people like Von Miller? And I'm just like, enough. It
just makes. I know you don't like it, and it's fair, but it is sensible. Just because, again, they only have a 35-year-old guy. They have AJ Epinesa, who I think you know who he is.
I'm saying that early. Like if they want to get a guy, an edge rusher in the second or third round, fine. Like I can live with that. But the first round, again, I'm just like,
it's a good chance. It's a good chance.
No, I know it's a good chance. I know how they like. Look, I said this before. They want to create what the Carolina Panthers had during the 2010s with Cam, where it's loaded on defensive line, on offensive line, and then Cam's throwing to Kelvin Benjamin and Ted Ginn. And I'm not a fan of that because I think you need to give your quarterback more weapons than he has. Like, just give him a bunch, like $1 billion. The difference between the Chiefs and the Bills, and why the Chiefs can be like, hey, we don't need like number 1 wide receivers, even though last year they did. Like, I think their offense sunk the Chiefs because their wide receivers were terrible. But when you have Andy Reid there, and then you have, look, Mahomes is Jordan. I don't care what anyone says. I know like 1 month happens and you're like, you know what? Josh Allen's better than Mahomes. No, like that's the guy you go. He is Jordan, where Josh Allen's Karl Malone and freaking the other guys, Joe Burrow's Charles Barkley, whatever. Like it's his world, and he can make the most out of anyone right there. And he's got the Zen master in Andy Reid, who's an X's and O's savant, who gets the most. You see those play designs. I didn't see that with Dorsey. I don't know. I saw a little bit with Joe Brady, and I think that's the biggest thing going into this season coming up in 6 months or whatever we're from. It's going to be all about the internal guys. It's going to be Joe Brady's show. How good of an X's and O's guy is he? That's the one way that they can go to that next level. If he's like a savant, which again, we have no idea if he is, because the Chiefs, they have that, and I wish the Bills had that in terms of a savant. And that's why the Chiefs can get away with it a little bit, because they have him. And it kind of not pisses me off, but it annoys me because Andy Reid will take he knows he's the man. So he doesn't need first round talent at wide receiver every year. Whereas Sean McDermott, a defensive guru, we like to think he needs defensive linemen. We need to draft high on defensive linemen. We need to sign Von Miller. Like it's like, dude, like, can you just coach up one guy that's drafted in like the 5th round on your front 7? And I know Milano and your boy Bernard did fine, but like on the defensive line, can't you just find a guy in the 5th round and like develop him? Like the Chiefs do with their offense. I just kind of wish they had that feel a little bit more, if you want.
Let me tell you why I'm laughing.
Why are you laughing?
Let me tell you why I'm laughing. Everybody, if you're watching, or for people who are listening. So we talk, and one of your principal complaints to me all week long was you are sick to death of talking about the Bills and the draft. And I had this all queued up to get in the PSL talk, and you just went on like a 7 or 8 minute tirade about.
It was like 2 minutes. I'm almost done with my Imperial Stout, which is 10% alcohol. See, that's why I don't get why you don't like these type of beers, because you're the type of person that wants to get know what. Yeah, and I would think like you would want to have like an 8% beer and then be like, give me 2 or 3 of those and you're done. Instead, you want to have piss water like Coors Light. You want 10 of those.
I just don't like. I don't like it
every day, or every hour. Anyways, I digress.
Here's what I want to do. Actually, I want to take a quick break and come back, and we're going to hit on PSLs. We're going to hit on the Sabres and Bills new COO, and then we're going to be doing our Easter draft as well. So be right back. All right, I am back here with Joe from Queens and his 10% alcohol beer. All right, so listen, PSL stuff, this has kind of come to the forefront a little bit this week, and I'm kind of taking like a little bit of an excerpt from the Buffalo News, because I know there are certainly some people out there, especially casual fans or people who don't have season tickets or maybe never had, who don't even know what a PSL is. So I kind of want to read you just a brief little excerpt.
I think that's just you. I think a lot of fans know what a PSL is.
Don't. I don't think so.
Oh, you just so Pat. Go ahead. I'm not gonna dump on you. Go ahead.
This is from the Buffalo News. A PSL is a license that fans could purchase that gives them the right to own a particular seat at the new Highmark Stadium. It then also gives the fan the right, if and when they would ever want to sell that seat, for any Bills fan who may not pay the price for the seat, similar to where they sit now, and they wish to move to another area at the new stadium. Their ass is going to the back of the line. I said that, not the Buffalo News. Or for that designated spot when it comes time to talk to other season ticket holders. Prices for PSLs for Buffalo have not been revealed yet. They will start to. They're in the process of inviting fans to come out to what they call their Stadium Experience Center, which I believe is like in Amherst or Williamsville. Anyway, long story short, Joe, you know this, obviously. Again, some fans don't. With the new stadium being built, and 20, I think I've read 20 out of 32 stadiums have some form of PSL. Basically, you're helping fund a new stadium is what you're doing, because you're paying for a license for the right to hold season tickets. If you've never had a PSL before, which hasn't happened in Buffalo, you've never had to do that. Now these season ticket holders are going to have to pay a price, potentially a lot. This is worrisome in Buffalo, New York, in this economy, although I think ultimately they're going to do what they got to do. But what are you thinking right now that this is starting to become significant news. And it certainly will be, if not right now, it will be soon.
Well, if you've been following this talk about the stadium,
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking like a decade ago when like people always wanted Ralph Wilson to build a new stadium. And the thing that Ralph's people would always say, well, if you build a new stadium, it's going to cost more money. We have to charge PSLs, blah, blah, blah. You know,
Right.
PSLs have been around forever. They've been around since, I think the Cowboys are like the team that like brought it into the forefront. And, you know, I don't want to say I have personal experience, but I remember when the last time a New York State team like got a new stadium or a few different stadiums was like in the late 2000s when the New Yankee Stadium became a thing, Citi Field became a thing, and MetLife Stadium where the Giants and Jets play. And that all happened in like 2009. And at that point, they had PSLs and they were charging a ridiculous amount of money for it, which they will not charge the same rate as they'll do in Buffalo because this is New York.
Sure.
And it failed miserably here. No one got them. That's why for a long time, when you would see Yankees games, you would see no one behind home plate ever because no one wanted to pay for it. And it sunk a lot of like investors, the teams lost a ton of money thinking that they were going to rob people of the PSL. And this is New York, where unlike Buffalo, they have tons of businesses. There's tons of money, Wall Street, everything. It's corporate heaven over here, where they thought, oh, hey, like corporations are going to buy the PSLs, and they'll want to bring their clients down to the game, and it failed miserably, and they had to like cut prices. It went down, and it was a disaster for all four teams, excuse me. And I don't know how that's going to work here in Buffalo. I saw.
Well, there's hints of pricing now. There's
there's some
surveys that people have gotten a hold of.
It's a racket. It sucks. I mean, this is why, like, on one hand, when we talked about the stadium, you and I, like a year and a half ago, and I was kind of I don't know. I saw a lot of, I couldn't grasp like what I really wanted. Like, I kind of wanted the downtown stadium, but I knew that, hey, it's going to be more expensive, and it's more expensive, then you're going to pay more. Same with a dome,
Sure.
and this is where this is why they bought the cheapest, newest option, which is a stadium in Orchard Park, and that's it. So when that whole thing happened, that was, I kind of had that in the back of my mind. Like, let's see what these PSL prices are going to be, because I don't know. Like, me personally, if I'm paying like $1,000 for season tickets, like that's like the rock pile, like mid, and I got to pay like another $10,000 for it. That's a lot. And then there's the principle of it a little bit, which is like, I got to fucking pay. Sorry, I didn't mean to swear.
There, put a quarter in the jar.
Yeah, put it in the jar. But if I got to pay like $10,000, I better be getting something out of it. And I hope the Bills and like not the Sabres, but the Bills like give people swag and stuff like that. Like, hey, you're going to get like a liquor set. I don't know, like something like that.
I've read meetings about like, meet and greets with legends of the team and dinner stuff, having
they got to hook it up, man. Like, they have to,
sure.
like, because I don't know how much my one friend, I have a good friend. His name is Ron. He's a, ex-army guy. He's a nurse. He's got season tickets. And, he told me that, he's just had a kid, and he's like, I'm using my bonus. He doesn't know what the price is, but he's like, I'm using my bonus to buy those to get that PSL. But he has no idea how much it's going to be. And like, he's a loyal, like he's very loyal fan. He always believes in them. Me and him always butt heads sometimes about them. But it's going to be interesting to see how the business community, because I could see like I said, if you have $1,000 like season tickets, and then you have to go and get like another 1,000, I could see that being fine. But if you got to go like I said, 10,000, and you got to play 10 times more a season, that's going to be a lot. And again, look, Buffalo doesn't have the corporate money that New York City has, or like Las Vegas has. Like, how many corporations are going to be buying? Like, you could count on New Era to like, those are like New Era would buy like those like really expensive seats, or like a very like a bigger corporation. There's just not that many in Buffalo, like, and I wonder how that's going to work. And I just say this: thank God the Bills are good right now, because if they were bad, and you're talking like and I'm sure you're going to get to some of the numbers soon. If you're talking about some numbers that there's rumors to be, like, good luck if you had to buy that when you had to watch EJ Manuel play freaking quarterback,
Right. Well, the way it's working right now, the way it's going to start to work and they're rolling out are, like I said, each fan's going to get like a one-on-one tour at this experience center with somebody who's an assigned sales agent. And then when that tour's over when they're done at the conclusion, they sit down and they're going to go through what seats are available. They're going to get first crack at similar seats to where they are now, the season ticket holders. And they're going to find out where the seats are available and what the prices are. And then they'll make a decision on having a PSL. And the team conducted a survey. Now, this was over 2 years ago, and again, now I'm citing the Buffalo News here. It says it does provide a decent roadmap for PSL pricing in various locations around the new stadium. The PSL prices noted in the survey start at $500 for reserve seating and reach as high as $16,500 for premium seating. And again, you know what PSLs are used for. They help build stadiums. They help renovations. The expectation with Buffalo PSLs is that it's going to raise between $100 to $200 million. And then, the remaining $850 or whatever comes from taxpayers and whatnot. But anyway, for season ticket holders who don't care about a lot of that other mumble jumble, basically what they're saying, if you have a normal seat, not talking about, like in the clubhouse, the business suites or stuff like that. Talk about seats. If you got a shitty seat, you're probably paying anywhere from $500 to $1,000 for a PSL. And if you got a really good seat, like you're on the 45-yard line, 15 rows up, you might be paying $10,000, $15,000 for a PSL. And the crazy thing is, Joe, I did spend some time looking earlier today at PSLs. Like, there's a site that brokers them. Like, if you're interested in buying a PSL, because you got to buy a PSL to be having season tickets. And like I said, my research I found out 20 of 32 teams have some form. I use the Cleveland Browns as an example, even with an older stadium now. Their PSLs range from $750 to around $3,100, but none are available. I'm talking about originally when you first had a chance, which again was a long time ago and it's more expensive with the Bills. Anyway, the only other tip people are saying is don't buy PSLs, don't buy season tickets anymore. People are going to go on StubHub and just buy tickets game to game. But there's always a risk with that because obviously there's no guarantee you're going to get a game. You don't know what the cost is going to be for that, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of one of those, for lack of a more fancier term, the team's kind of got you by the balls a little bit, man. You're going to sit there. You want to continue to be a season ticket holder for the Buffalo Bills. You're going to pony up, and you've never had to do it before. So I think initially, like that first few years, like when you're not a smoker, but like in New York State, I remember this because I was a bartender and I used to smoke. I haven't in 12 years, but I remember when they first banned smoking. It was crazy, like the adjustment. You couldn't smoke in bars and, couldn't smoke anywhere indoors and this and that. And then people just got used to it. Kind of feel like that's what this is going to be. Sticker shock. Holy shit, I got to pay all this. I'm not doing this. Ultimately, probably do. 5-10 years later, it's just par for the course. You know what I'm saying? If that makes any sense?
Yeah, I still think it's about the income of like the average fan in Buffalo. Like I just was Googling before how the Raiders sold their PSLs pretty fast. And they were charging probably more than they're going to charge. They charge more than the Bills are going to charge. Because again, it's in Vegas.
Bigger
Vegas
market.
Yes, Vegas has a bigger market. Vegas also has casinos. It's definitely a more corporate like city. And I go back to that because how is that going to play out in Buffalo? Always remember, like when they did that stupid Toronto series, the part of that, it was a money grab, don't get me wrong, but part of it was they were like, we milked this region as much as we can. We want that Canadian Toronto money because it's Toronto. It's a big freaking city. We want that corporate dollar over there to come down here and trickle down here. That was what they hoped for. And it never happened. Like no one, like that series blew up. And also, I don't know how many companies from Toronto ended up buying like a box. Like did CN or like the CN Tower or whatever company that is buy a box in Buffalo because of that? I probably not. And that I think is the biggest thing because I do feel, it's the cheap end sounds fine, but when what is like, how does it go? How much
Right.
higher and higher does it go? Like,
Right.
it's like, and I don't know what you consider like a shitty seat. They could consider like, oh, these 2,000 seats are crappy, but these other 20,000 are good. Like, it's subjective to figure out what
Yeah.
seat is really good. I saw Jeremy White tweeted that he heard like a club seat was $50,000 for a PSL, and a club seat that's usually like that's not a box seat. Or like a box suite, excuse me. That is like a one individual seat where you get like liquor and you get everything. It's a buffet. You get everything. That's 50,000 for that. I don't know how many, like how much you're gonna have, like how much people can afford that. Again, it goes back to the economy and how much people are making in Buffalo.
Can I quote one of your favorite wrestlers?
Sure.
Your boy MJF. We're in a city among the poors. Buffalo are the poors, man, especially compared to like Dallas and in LA, Miami, shit like that. I mean, there's only so far we can go in this conversation before starting to know figures, which I think in a matter of months, as people are taking these tours that, the season ticket holders are going to get, then we'll start to learn what the prices are going to be. It's just kind of like I said, it's just basically what we're saying is brace yourself, man, because shit, if you want to be a season ticket holder, it's going to be harder. Some people can afford it. Some people can't, but they will find a way to anyway. And then there's some people who are going to not get season tickets. I read that there was an 8,000 season ticket waiting list in Cleveland.
I'm sure
right
I'm sure everywhere it is. But again, I think back to the Sabres, and it's totally different probably, but like
you are lucky about that being good.
Yeah, the Sabres used to have that giant waiting list, and it died when they got bad. It was over. They went through that, and that list is dead. And like, again, it's all about income. I just Googled it before. Like Buffalo has a $42,000 median house income, like in Buffalo. In Vegas, I just Googled that. It's 65 there. It's big. Right. It's a difference. And again, that's not counting suburbs. Obviously, I'm not stupid. I know like the city of Buffalo is not a rich freaking area, but like if you go to Amherst, Williamsville, over there, that's when people got the moolah over there. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. I don't know. It's gonna be. I'm intrigued to see what happens.
It's the middle seats. I think it's the middle seats, the middle class, just like everything else in the world. You know what I mean? It's the hardest for the middle class. Those seats that are all right, they're not just going to be $1,000, but they're also not going to be $12,000, $15,000. They're going to be $5,000 to $8,000. Which, by the way, for the average person, holy shit, man, $5,000 to $8,000 is a lot of freaking money to be able to.
I'd like to know like who came up with these numbers, because here's the thing. I don't know if you know this, but like this whole stadium thing is being outsourced to the Jerry Jones and the Steinbrenners.
The legend or whatever.
The legend people are the one, and that's the funny thing is like, as I told you before, the Yankees, that PSL thing blew up in their face, and who's doing all this? Them. They're part of that. And I hope they freaking really did their due diligence, looked at how the income is and what the average fan does there, and like who everyone does, and didn't come in there going, oh, well, everyone's got to have money. Like, and like, it's going to be like Vegas or Minnesota, or something like that. And it might not. Look, I don't know. I would not be shocked either way. But at the same time, like the thing that Buffalo has that New York doesn't have is Buffalo is like the Bills are the only thing in town. No one gives a shit about anything else to go to in terms of a corporate level. You go to like Shays Buffalo, like, okay, great. Like the Sabres, okay, yeah, sure. But that's it. Where it's in New York, it's everything. It's the Nets. It's the freaking. It's Broadway. There's competition everywhere for that entertainment dollar. Whereas in Buffalo, it's like 2-3 things and that's it. So they have an advantage in that slot. But again,
they'll find a way. Most people are going to find a way. They'll find a way. They'll find a way.
You got $8,000. You're gonna. I know you don't have season tickets.
I don't buy single game tickets right now, bro. Let alone season tickets. I'm not that guy. I've talked about this. I just don't like going to games. So I'm the wrong person to talk to about, because
I do feel bad. I do feel bad they are cutting seats down. It's going from 72,000 to 60.
It's going to make the demand to get them.
But that's also what is going to get cut out. Are they going to be? It's not going to be the luxury seats. I don't think it's going to be the shitty seats probably, where like, that's what I would assume. But look, I think there's going to be that sticker shock price, and we'll see what happens. It's completely new. Like, and I know there'll be that. Oh, like I remember when someone said that they were going to have difficulty selling these, and maybe they'll sell them. But like as I said, the one time it happened here in the state was in the biggest market in the country, and it bombed.
Yeah,
and I think, and for me, there's the other thing too is like, it's just such crap. Like Terry Pagula, like that money he has to put in. It's not all his money. It's the fans' money. Like all that PSL money is going to that. That's how the NFL screwed everyone. Which was, hey, this is how we're gonna do business. Oh yeah, we can. And again, I hope the Bills have some creative ass. Like you're gonna get ticket comps to the Sabres. Jim Kelly's gonna make you a freaking omelet in the morning or something like that. Like I hope they really hook them up with something and not just do this.
Look, if this was Twitter X, I would say we need to bookmark this tweet and then kind of revisit it, because there's not really much more we could say until we start to know where the seats are going to be, how much money you're talking for PSLs, what perks you might get with a PSL. So we'll kind of circle back around this when we got some more information. Real quick though, I want to at least talk about this for a few minutes before we finish with our draft. Pete Guelli is the new Sabres and Bills Chief Operating Officer, COO. There is a good read this past week from Tim Graham of The Athletic, an interview with him, a one-on-one interview. It's as good as you're going to get for a guy who's not going to say anything, controversial.
He's also new. Like he's got to get the lay of the land. Like
he's new. He's new now. I mean, he worked for the team for 10 years, a long time ago. But anyway,
I hope he didn't learn anything from Russ Brandon when he was here. Well, I hope he hated Russ Brandon and like didn't listen to that idiot. But go ahead.
A good read, like I said, a good read from Tim Graham. Good job of like kind of highlighting the mess of the Buffalo teams over this last 6 years. You just mentioned him, Russ Brandon, re-signing over inappropriate relationships. Kim's cardiac arrest in June 22. Tim writes about that. Last year, they fired their COO and stadium negotiator Ron Vercuria. They put John Roth in charge. That shit got dissolved. Or actually, they dissolved PSC altogether. And then, like, just 3 months into the job, Roth
they've been a disaster.
Roth been fired for having a romantic relationship. Anyway, so Tim kind of highlights, a lot.
I hope this guy's married and happy with the sex life. Okay, but anyways, go ahead.
So Tim, kind of like I said, he does a really good job of just highlighting what a mess it's been with this position over the last 6 years here in Buffalo. And then he starts to talk more about Guelli. Like I said, he's comes over from the New York Giants. He's been there for the last 5 years. You read it in the article that Tim wrote. Kim Pagula wanted him 2 years ago, but the Giants blocked him from the interview. Like I said, it's some pretty noteworthy things to come from the interview. But I guess the big news, like I said, is just they have a new COO for both teams again. And this guy's claim to fame is that he was with the Charlotte, well, at the time, Bobcats, and they were not just an on-court disaster, but a season ticket and just marketing disaster. And him and Michael Jordan helped rebrand them back to the Charlotte Hornets. And it was a big financial turnaround anyway, which, I mean, we need to point out, this guy ain't going to draft a wide receiver in the first round, Joe. His job is to get people to want to buy PSLs. His job is to get the KeyBank Center to look better. His job is to get people to want to go to what is a absolutely deplorable freaking game experience with the Buffalo Sabres. If they're not playing great, there ain't a reason in the world to go watch that team play hockey at the arena. Anyway, that's the stuff that he's going to be tasked with, not, re-signing AJ Epinesa for 2 more years. You know what I'm saying? What are your thoughts on, I know you read the article, and just this guy in general, from what little bit we know about him right now?
I think it's interesting that they brought in an outside guy who has a pretty extensive sports resume.
Right.
It's something they have not done. I was trying to figure this out. Like, I remember in the mid 90s, they brought in this guy named Doug Moss, who the Sabres did. And he was a guy, he was in charge of MSG and like the Rangers, and they brought him in, and that did not last long, unfortunately, for him. But, for the most part, it's always been internal guys. It's been guys that haven't worked at other teams. Ted Black, I remember he had I think he worked at the Penguins for like a year or two, but he worked at MSG or the Penguins sports affiliate or something. I forgot what he did, but this is like the first time in a long time they brought in like an outsider who has a lot of extensive experience.
Yeah.
In terms of his experience, he was with the Charlotte Hornets in the NBA, and that's a tough, the Hornets have always been bad, and it doesn't help that you're in an area that is college town USA for basketball. Like
they were good in the 90s though.
They were in the 90s because I remember that the starter jacket.
That's Tyler Dunn's crew there.
Moran, yeah, they were fun. It was a new. Everyone liked their logo. That was like the thing everyone liked. But in the after that, no one cared anymore. But in Charlotte, as I was saying, like you got to compete with a lot of colleges like Duke, North Carolina, Clemson. That's a college town, and they did get their season tickets up. I think the last year he was there, they were at 17. They were in 17th in the NBA, whereas before they were near the bottom.
Yeah.
Jordan, I remember I read an article once, and it's crazy. Like, Michael Jordan was this guy's boss, but like I've heard that Michael Jordan is kind of a very absentee owner, like of them. Like he kind of was like, he had so many things going on, like he was out, and it was kind of, he let everyone else run it. But he did a good job there, obviously. And, he was with the Giants. I don't know much about what he did with the Giants. The Giants on the field, again, this has nothing to do with him. They were not good during his time there, and that probably makes it more difficult for him to sell PSL season tickets, especially in New York, because New York is like, you got to win in New York. You can't be crappy, or they're not going to go. And, again, he had a pretty extensive experience. I did see a quote he had when I looked up before we did this talk, where he talked about his time in Buffalo, and he did talk about the regionalizing the place in terms of like going to Rochester. Because again, he's there for that 10 years, and that's when they did the Rochester training camp. That's when they did the Toronto series. So he's all about regionalization. And I think on the surface, it seems fine. Like, good for them. Get someone that's not Terry's best friend from his childhood, like the Roth guy, or, the guys they've been bringing in. Okay, that's good. Now, the one thing I'll say that's a little bit of a weird is that he's going to be running both teams, which they stayed away from that. When they first started, it was Russ Brandon had the Bills, Ted Black had the Sabres. Then Russ Brandon came in, he took both. Then Russ Brandon left, Kim Pegula came in, took both. Then Kim had her cardiac arrest. Then they separated it again. They dissolved PSL, like you said. And now, like, what are they going to do now? Like, is it going to have all individual staff members again, or are they going to have like the marketing guy is going to do both? Because I've said this before, and I've heard from different people that there's always been this redheaded stepchild with the Sabres, for a while now. Like, no one wants to go work there; they'd rather go to the Bills. And I tend to think that if you blend your creative people in together, people are going to start fighting over who gets this idea. Like, if someone has this great idea, they might be like, I want it for the Bills because that's going to be more successful. It's going to be more money because the Bills are king. They're better than the Sabres in terms of marketing and all that. Whereas the Sabres they might just do that because they're going to make more money there, where the guy has no choice but to give it up to the Bills because he has to pick, like, who do I want to be in this campaign? Do I want the Sabres to be the lead of this or the Bills? And if you don't have creative people who are just in charge of one thing, then you're going to have it blend in. And I think that's where you're going to have problems. And I think that's what ultimately led to a lot of the problems they had, where like staff was split up and like they were like, yeah, let's concentrate more on the Bills, where I'm a believer of it. They should be completely separate, and not have too many guys going into each kitchen, because you will develop a bias, because you're going to see who's making more money. And right now, the Bills are making way more money than the Sabres are. You look at the payroll situation, with the Sabres they're not what they were 5-6 years ago when they paid everyone at the top level of the salary cap, because they have lost so much money. And I think when you're losing money, you're like, why am I going to you're going to want to put your assets, your business acumen into the Bills, because that's where the money is. That's where the star power is more so. And that's where people care about more. That's why I think that I found interesting that if they're going back to this, we're going to split it thing. Because if you're splitting it and you have your head marketing person doing marketing for both teams, like they did before with Russ Brandon and Kim, I think you're going to have an issue. Like, that's just my opinion, but I'm not. That's just my creative input. Like, you're going to pick your favorites.
Well,
you should have it separate.
Yeah. The only look, man. I'm glad they got somebody. Hopefully it works out. I will say one thing though, in that Tim Graham article, and I don't want to give away, his whole article. People should go read it. But anyway, he was asked. Tim asked him about the sale of the Sabres, and he said, and this is a quote. He goes, there's been no discussion, he says, about the sale of the Sabres. And then he said, if you could find an owner more committed to this hockey team, I'd like to see who that is. I'm like, yo, did Kevin Adams say that shit? Or did the new COO say that shit? Because I couldn't tell the difference. Because saying that, a guy who has not spoken to the media about the Sabres in literally years, I think since like COVID and shit, is going, you say, the more committed to this hockey team. I'm like, whatever. Anyway, all right, who cares? Who cares?
It's an interesting thing. I'm as I said, I think I'm going to be curious because, and one more thing, and then we can move on to, I don't know, I think we're drafting Easter eggs. I'm really hoping at least there's a new emphasis on the synergy between both the Bills and the Sabres. When this whole thing happened, when Terry Pegula bought the Bills, I thought it was going to be great. Like, oh man, we're going to have I had all these ideas. Like they could do this. They can have it to where they can have like an event at the arena with both the Bills alumni and the Sabres alumni. They can have uniforms where like you can have a Bills hockey jersey or something like that. They did none of that. Like One Buffalo sucked. It was a terrible marketing ploy by them. No one liked it. The only synergy you ever see was when the Sabres were held at gunpoint to go to Bills games, and like they probably didn't give a shit. And Deion Dawkins is like the only Sabres fan ever, I think, in the last 15 years or whatever, for the Bills. I just hope there's a way they can bring this together and have more things. Like you want to talk about, like we talk about PSLs, like there's a way, like, hey, you get Sabres tickets if you get a PSL or something like that. Like bring them together. Kim one time said like she thought there was no synergy between the two. Like, oh, they're totally two different fans. I didn't believe that shit. I was like, nah, I think Buffalo fans like they have their favorite, but they're gonna watch both. So right. I didn't agree when she said that. Then she said that a couple of years ago. And I was like, what are you talking about? But I hope that this guy tries to realize, like, hey, there's a lot more of fan crossover in terms of that. Like, you should do it on the field and then like and on the product in terms of like in different events. You shouldn't do it behind the scenes though. But I would like to have a little of that. Go ahead.
Can we have a little bit of fun now to end the show here?
Yeah.
Try to transition into this draft. All right. So again, for newbies here, this is what will be our weekly starting five draft. We're going to have a different topic every week. It's going to go, we draft pretty simple, starting five. So we're each going to draft five. I'm going to put it up in the show notes. We'll also put it up on Twitter on a poll. I'm sure you'll put up there as well. Retweet it. Get it out there to people. Vote for your favorite. We're going to draft a team of five, and the fans will decide ultimately who drafted the better starting five. This week, again, with it being Easter coming up next week, we're doing a bunny draft. You could have rabbit in the title, of course, as well. So bunny, rabbits, whatever. I'll tell you what, here's what we're going to do. I was going to say flip a coin, but since you are the guest and this is our first, and we'll be doing hopefully a lot of these for weeks to come here, months to come, I'm going to give you the choice here.
Wow.
To start it. I'm going to let you take your pick. So either you're going to get your first pick or you're going to get your next two. And obviously it's a snake draft. Go back and forth until we each get our five. So I'm going to give you your choice, man. I'm going to let you decide.
Can I ask you a question, though? A draft question. Okay.
Go ahead.
When you would draft, did you do it through your vision of like, this is what I think works, or did you view it like, I think fans would like this?
There's a little bit of both. Honestly, it's a good question, especially for being our first one that we're doing this. I don't think there's a correct answer, a scientific answer. Sometimes I voted purely for what I thought, and quite often, quite frankly, I got my ass whooped in the polls because of that. Sometimes I would think in my mind, well, I think this will play well with the audience. So kind of a combination of both. There's no right or wrong answer. I guess whatever kind of vibe you're feeling at that particular time, I guess. So there's no right or wrong. It's a good question.
I do remember the one draft I remembered I yelled at you about this was you guys did an HBO characters one. And I remember you didn't have any Sex and the City characters on there. And I was like,
I hate that show.
And you hate that show. And I was like, dude, like that's like a top 5 show. Like you would get the women demographic to vote for that.
Probably.
And you voted for Samantha. And you were like, no, let's vote for Martin Tupper or something. I don't know. Like just
the whole key, you're right. The whole key is just, it's a fun thing to do. It's just a fun little exercise. Do I want to win the poll? Of course, but do I honestly care? This might be the one time you hear me say this. I don't care. I just want people to vote. I just want people to look at the list and have a reaction to it. Like next week when we do
whatever followers now, so I can get some votes on this
next week when we do whatever the new category is going to be, I'm sure I'm going to read a couple of the funnier comments that we get from this week's one. So anyway, to answer your question directly, whatever you feel like. If you're trying really hard to win the poll, then pander. You love calling me pandering, Pat. So pander to the audience if you're really trying to win the poll. Yeah.
So
you want to stay true to yourself. Pick what you really like. So
no, see, I'm going to be, even though I'm against this when Sean McDermott does this, I'm going to be about complimentary drafting. Where I got to think about what other people like. Like, okay, this is what a little. It's got to blend in.
Now, see, I'm typically the opposite.
No, you're like Vince McMahon, audience of one. Like we're gonna shove Roman Reigns down my throat.
I care about my stats more than if the team wins the games. That's how I am with these polls. All right, so you got either your first or you get your next two.
All right, I'm gonna do the first.
All right, so you're gonna go first. I kind of gotta. I forgot. I haven't done this in so long. Usually I have a notebook in front of me, but I'll write this down. Go ahead. So you got your first pick. Bunnies, rabbits, any of that stuff.
Okay. I'm going here. This is someone that everyone has watched on TV before.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter how old you are. You watched it at some point. Your kids are going to watch it. Your nephews are going to watch him, etc. He's an icon. He put Warner Brothers on the map.
I knew you were going there.
Bugs Bunny, number one.
Good one. I would have done the same had I had the first pick. All right. So you're going to go Bugs Bunny. I am going. All right, so I got my next two now, and then you get two. So you get how this goes. All right. So you took Bugs Bunny with your first pick overall. I'm going to go. I mean, it's Easter. It's kind of corny, but I got to write this down too. I'm definitely going to go the Easter Bunny. Easter Bunny's popular among kids. Are there any kids on Twitter that are voting? No? Then I might be in trouble with this pick.
Well, Easter Bunny's good. I mean, look, he's handy and like he's famous. You know, people think of the Easter. I mean, I think he's real. Allegedly.
I'm going to go right off the bat too, by the way. So I'm going, the first two I think were pretty 1-2, whatever combination people wanted to use. So you go Bugs Bunny. I'm going Easter Bunny. And I'm going to come back with, because it's near WrestleMania season. I'm in that vibe right now. I'm going to go Bad Bunny. Best rapper, one of the most streamed rappers in the world. A absolutely stud wrestler for somebody who's not
he's the man
wrestler. Dude, that match that he had in Puerto Rico with Damian Priest, that shit was lit. And that crowd last year was one of the loudest I've ever heard in my life. He's one of the most popular rappers in the world. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know half the lyrics. I don't know what he's saying half the time, but I'm still always bobbing and weaving to his shit, man. Love his music. So I'm going Easter Bunny, Bad Bunny, and now you're going to be up and you got two.
You know what? I have a big board of 20 bunny rabbits, whatever. 20. Did not have him on. I totally forgot about him, Bad Bunny. So props to you. That was not on my board.
All right, so you got Bugs Bunny and you got your next two right now.
Okay, so I got the kids demo with Bugs Bunny.
Mm-hmm.
Now I need to get the male demo. You got to get the male guy. And let me tell you this story a long time ago. As I was probably 12 years old at the time, they used to have these things called magazines, which everyone knows. I think we all know what they were. If you wanted a magazine subscription, you would have to send a card. You wrote out this card that said you want this subscription for 12 months. You send it out. They would bill you. Like, it wasn't like they didn't even check a check. They just would bill you, and the magazine wouldn't even come before you even got the bill. Mm-hmm. So when I was a 12-year-old kid, one time I'm sitting in my room. All of a sudden, my mom comes in. What is this? And it's this magazine in a plastic bag. It was a Playboy. And I was like, what the heck is this? I was like, a Playboy. I was like, I didn't order this. I was like, but I'll take it. And then I found out my friend, the guy I mentioned before, Ron, decided to just order me Playboy. Didn't pay for it though. Like, he just was like, oh, I'm going to order this for you and not pay for it. So luckily I had subpar parents, but they did a good decision where they decided to buy this for me because they were like, he's 12, 13. He's going to start whacking it soon. So let's get in this. So with that being said, Playboy Bunnies. Playboy
Good
Bunnies.
One.
There we go.
All right,
that's my
that's
number
one.
2.
All right, well, you got another one now because you got your next two.
Yeah. So I'm all about food, water, drinks, right?
Yep.
The Nestle Quick Rabbit. Nestle Quick is awesome. It's a great milk. You're gonna get chocolate milk.
Sleeper.
If you're gonna get chocolate milk, it's gotta be Nesquik. Whatever.
I'm writing that down on my list. You have to get that. Like Nestle Quick one. Yes. And then you get the strawberry one, you get the milk one. Oh, I loved that as a kid. Loved it.
Yeah, love it. And I still will drink it as an adult. So
I'm choking. I'm choking. I didn't even.
I got the kid. I got the teenager kid. I got the man. So there we go. I got that. Those are my three so far. So.
By the way, I'm going to tell you right now, like my draft studying on this topic is my depth is thin. My draft board's thin. I'm going to be honest with you though. Nestle Quick, I completely forgot about. That would have been pretty high on my list. I grew up with that powder, man. Mm-hmm. I love that shit. Oh my God.
It was great.
I feel like having a glass of that shit right now. All right. So I got two here now. I'm going to go, so uninspiring, but I got to do it, man. The commercials all the time with the battery and never stops going. The Energizer Bunny. That's going to be
on my list too.
That's going to be my third pick. And now I got one more here. Oh, goddamn. I don't even need an explanation, but I'm going to go Roger Rabbit. Roger Rabbit's going to be, he's going to be my other pick. If I go anything else besides that, well, it might be too late already, but if I try to get too interesting or unique, I don't want to try to lose with only 15% of the vote in the very first week. So anyway, Energizer Bunny, Roger Rabbit, you're on the board. These are going to be your last two now. So you got your final two here.
Okay. Sticking with food.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone eats cereal, right? We all do.
Yep.
I think the best cereal is the one that you put the cereal in and the milk changes color. The Trix Rabbit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Trix Rabbit. Fuck. Okay. That made me swear. I'm kind of doing three things there. I'm looking at the screen, looking at my monitors, and I'm making sure I type these.
Yeah, don't be stealing my picks, dude, because I'm not writing this down.
Trix Rabbit. That's good. What's the silly rabbit tricks are for kids? Oh,
yes, silly rabbit tricks are for kids. Great. Everyone knows that slogan. Done.
Yeah.
So we got okay. Now this is going to be very controversial, and I can't believe I'm saying this. This is from my wife because I told her, I was like, hey, what do you think? What do you think? She's like Thumper. She talked about Thumper, talking about these Disney characters. I was like, I got Bugs. Like that's going to reach that. She said this. She does not own one of these. She never has. But there's a bunny vibrator out there that I guess every girl likes if they want. I don't know.
Really?
Hey, so yes, it's called a bunny vibrator. I need that girl demo 5. There you go. Bunny vibrator.
Okay.
I might get yelled at on Twitter by someone that's going to be angry, but there it is. The bunny vibrator. I guess from what she said, her friends have all went crazy about this thing. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I'm taking her advice. She knows a lot of girls more than I do. She doesn't need that anymore, by the way, because I'm the genetic jackhammer over here. But yeah, that's number 5. Because again, I'm complimentary. I'm like, I got the kids demo, I got the guy demo with the Playboy bunny, I got the girl who wants to get off. Dude,
you want this way more than I do at this point.
I might get yelled. I'm kind of a little bit embarrassed by that last one, but I think it's gonna reach.
Well, I'm gonna give you credit because 2 of yours are great picks. 2 of them that I literally never thought of. All right, so I got my last pick here. I'm tempted to say neither of these are gonna play very well, but I'm not picking this one. But White Rabbit, but not the character. The song by Jefferson Airplane, old song. Oh, White Rabbit. I can't even sing that shit. But anyway, I was tempted to pick that. But I'm going to go with a morbid one here. And this is going to be one I know it's not going to play well. But you know what? At this point, I'm going to be creative with mine. One of my favorite movies, or at least one of the most
I know where you're going here. I think I know where
was Fatal Attraction.
I had that too. Okay. And I was like,
Fatal Attraction, one of my favorite movies and one of the most messed up scenes you'll ever see. The little girl, Ellen, had a pet bunny. and the psychopath, Glenn Close, I think her character name was
Yes.
Alex. And Michael Douglas comes home and she is cooking that rabbit, literally cooking that rabbit. And that leads to the climatic ending of the movie. I'm going to call it Rabbit Stew, and I'll put Fatal Attraction, / next to it so people know who have actually even seen the movie know what I'm talking about.
I had that on my list, and
All right, good. I feel a little bit better.
I'm gonna go deep here a little bit. So when I was a kid, I'm not gonna say who, but someone in my inner circle made a guy watch that movie because that guy had an affair and was like, "You need to watch this movie because it's gonna scare you." And I watched it too. And I remember that scene, and I was like mortified because I remember how they cut it up where it was like the girl was running to the rabbit cage and something else was happening. And then the mom was like smelling something in the kitchen. It was boiling, opens up the pot. Boom, there's a boiling bunny in there. And I was like mortified. I was like, that was, as a 8-year-old who saw that was crazy. That's a crazy movie. That, like, I think of the line in, I think it was when Sleepless in Seattle, when like when Tom Hanks was supposed to meet that random girl in like Chicago or he was supposed to meet Meg Ryan randomly. Yeah. And his son was like, "You need to go meet her. You need to go meet her." And he was like, "Did you ever see Fatal Attraction? That movie scared every man in America." And I'm like, yes, that's like kind of what that was. So yeah, I agree.
That was the top of the Empire State Building, I think.
That was the end of the climax where he went to go wait. Sure. But I just remember that line where he was like, that scared everyone in America. So.
All right, let me, as we get out of here, let me review the picks here one more time. All right, so Joe went with Bugs Bunny, Playboy Bunny, Nestle Quick Bunny. I really like that one, by the way. Trix Rabbit, and Vibrator Bunny.
Hold on, it's the Rabbit Vibrator. Get that right.
All right, Rabbit
Vibrator.
Rabbit Vibrator. All right, make sure to remind me to put that down in the poll. Right.
Ask your wife about it.
All right, I will. All right, and my picks: Easter Bunny, Bad Bunny, Energizer Bunny, Roger Rabbit, and we'll call it Fatal Attraction Bunny. All right, I'm going to be honest with you again. Do the Nestle Quick real quick here, and then and Trix Rabbit. I forgot about those. You were better prepared than me. I think. Look, I had more.
I had more. Like, I just want to go through quickly what I have.
Yeah, real quick. Go ahead. Okay. Fly through a couple of ones.
I had the White Rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. Mm-hmm. I had Rabbit from Winnie the Pooh. I had the Cadbury Easter Bunny. Remember, like the
would have been a good one. Sure.
No anymore. I had Lola Bunny. That's Bugs's lady in Space Jam. I had Marlon Bundo, which you probably don't know, but that's Mike Pence's bunny that John Oliver made into a children's book about that bunny. We have it. We read it to our kid. It's great. Peter Cottontail, little bunny Foo. I had, and I thought about this as 5 because I want to reach the other people, but I had the Playboy bunny, so I didn't need to get them out. Marcus Buggs, I was gonna select the old linebacker from the Bills from like 4 or 5 years ago, and I had Thumper, and then I had the Rabbit Fatal Attraction one. And that was it. That was the only thing. But you did have Bad Bunny. I totally zonked on that. I would have had Bad Bunny in my top like 4 or 5. And my wife is over here and she's like, yeah, we forgot about that.
I will say this. You never know, though. I'm telling you, there were some drafts that I had with Yerdon where I swear to you, I'm like, yo, I had the better team, straight up. And then the poll would come out and I'd lose by 20 points, or vice versa. It happened sometimes like that. So I guess you never know. I would say on paper, you definitely have the better team. Like in Vegas right now, I think you'd be a significant favorite. I might have to go to the Cover One guys and say, listen, content bros,
you hate Joe.
Content bros. Joe was talking shit about you the whole podcast. So
yeah,
you got to. I don't think I did this time around.
I didn't yell at Aaron Quinn at all.
All right, like I said, this will be out on Twitter on Monday. You can go to my Twitter at Patrick Moran TV.
This is when you can actually follow me, because usually I tell you don't follow me. Follow me for this poll only. So you can vote for me. Then you can unfollow me afterwards.
At Buffalo Wins. At Buffalo Wins on Twitter. But anyway, all right, man, we're going to get out of here. This is fun, dude. Thanks for doing the show.
Thank you, sir.
All right, I'll be back with a brand new show. Like I said, Anthony Marino will join us tomorrow. Talk to you then.